Hi, this video is for my entrepreneurs and high success people that want to break through their thresholds and get to their next level of growth, fulfillment, abundance. You want to stop being held back, right? Sometimes I'll phrase this as why your ambition keeps outrunning your nervous system and how to break through that glass ceiling, right? Because chances are, if you're watching this, you're probably not failing. You're probably, from the outside at least, doing quite well. You're capable, intelligent, driven. You know how to execute. You know how to perform under pressure. And yet, every time things start to expand, you start to get more responsibility, more visibility, more money, more demand, or just simply moving towards the life you want in any capacity. Something inside you tightens, restricts, sabotages, it gets in the way. Something's happening and it's starting to break apart that forward momentum. For some of you, it might even seem like life is sabotaging you, or that you're sabotaging yourself, or that you're just unlucky and all these circumstances keep happening that are holding you back, right? It can be pretty frustrating until you bring awareness to it, until you understand what's really happening. Then you're empowered. Then you can do something about it, right? And so you get close to the goal, and then suddenly it seems like you're just as far away. You're just still on that journey. Maybe you've had a sort of crash out, a pullback, some sort of self-sabotage, right? Not because your conscious mind didn't want it, but because something inside of you is afraid of that change. It's not letting you expand into it. It's not letting you be able to actually hold it. Why? Because you can only create the reality that your nervous system is regulated for, in that you have the identity that fits with that reality, right? So your nervous system or your internal operating system, it has an upper limit. It's not one that's consciously set, it's unconscious and subconscious. It's based on your past. And what happens is, in the past, you have this loss, you have this negative impact that comes from success or moving forward. You have some sort of moment that's significant to you, at least biologically, right? It could be as simple as somebody takes away your toy as a kid and you push them over and take the toy back, right? And then you get reprimanded by mom for acting that way. And in a split second, you believe, oh, I'm not lovable if I'm claiming what's mine, if I'm taking what's mine, right? And then there's a false self, an identity that gets based in that. Okay, I can have a certain amount of things, but I can't really claim what's mine, what I actually want, only what's there in front of me, accessible to me. Otherwise, I will be unlovable. I will be punished by mom. I will be outcasted, right? You're not going to remember that. That's all going through little kid's brain, but it'll live on inside of you and it'll show up in other ways in your life. Anytime you really try to claim what's yours or have that more, not aggressive, but definitive, like claiming of it, your internal system goes, oh no, that could be dangerous. Because as a little kid, if mom doesn't love you, if you've been cast out from her, that's an actual survival threat. You can't live without mom at that age, right? And so now this internal system, it's sabotaging you or holding you back as a means of trying to protect you, but based on old, outdated information that's not going to work for you anymore, right? And so we have to be able to find what that is for you and then dissolve it, complete it, take the pressure out of it. That way, there's nothing holding you back, right? You just have a clear path forward. There's no problem there. So, a lot of high performers think they have a mindset problem, or some just simply think they have an external problem, right? Hopefully, you're a little bit past that frame of thinking, right? Because the external problems are just something that's been created from you. It's not something that's actually happening towards you, right? And you know, a lot of people, they'll get in this mindset of thinking they need to work harder, be more on top of their game, have better opportunities. And there's some level of reality to that too, right? But there's people that succeed without the environment without all the right things being there. And there's people that fail even though they have the perfect environment, set up opportunities, all of that, right? So it isn't the main thing. It isn't what's holding you back. I'll give you an example of this. I went from making $15 an hour as a plumber to becoming a service plumber and making six figures to leading the sales and operations, being sort of like the foreman, but also selling the projects and making multiple six-figure income in just a matter of a few years. I think it was 4 or 5 years that that progression happened. And that didn't come from having the right opportunities or just working harder. There was a level of that for sure. I definitely put in the time and energy and all of that. But I never got my master's plumber's license. I never got all the hours that you needed for any of those roles. I just had this unrelenting self-belief and I knew what it was that I wanted to accomplish. I knew what kind of life that I wanted to live in. In fact, when I was fed up with plumbing taking up so much time and energy, all I did was I imagined the reality I wanted, which was me working less hours, not doing physical labor, making twice as much, and having way more flexibility and freedom. And the day that I was quitting, the owner actually said, "Hey, we created a position for you." And it actually fulfilled all those things. And then I started to work hard and succeed at that, right? And started to move through my upper limit blockages because at that point I was like, cool, this is working, made twice as much money, don't have to do any of the physical labor, it's going good. But I also want to continue to do this personal growth, coaching, this work that I am doing now, obviously. And so I only wanted to work 3 days a week, which was unheard of. The company rule was a minimum 5 days, and a lot of people were working 6 days. And there was this company culture of being on call all the time, totally available. And I was like, nope, I'm going to work 3 days a week, sometimes four, and I'm not going to be on call. I'm not going to be constantly available, and I'm going to do this other job on the side as much as I want to. And that year that I decided to do that, I was the second person ever in company history to do $2 million in sales. And the one other person got it that year as well. We both hit it. He worked 75 days more than me, right? So he had the master license, he had the experience, he had been in it for 3 times as many years as me. But through my internal framing that I'm teaching you in this, I was able to succeed. I was able to be second best while working 75 days less, right? It's pretty cool stuff. And so this applies not only to success, but it can apply to other areas of life as well, right? So to kind of finish my story, I transferred that into being my own boss to doing this work full time. I've been doing it since I was 16, uh, evenings after work, and then taking days off to set aside to do this. And I decided, nope, I'm going to go into it full on 100%. I'm only going to do things that are my highest inspiration from now on. And so I started without a huge client list, without any guaranteed money. I had all the same bills and more bills because I no longer had insurance or any of that, and was just going to see if I could manifest the reality that I wanted. And as soon as I committed to that, I had 30 people book sessions within the first like week, was starting to get booked out. And I was dealing with really severe chronic health issues at the time, right? Some considered lifelong autoimmune conditions that were considered irreversible and very debilitating. Like I was offered to be on medical disability. I could have just taken a free check and gone that route if I wanted to, but I said, nope, I'm going to stick it out. I know I can heal this. And I was able to increase my income year after year by 25% or more, which is pretty unheard of in new startup companies, right? And doing all of that while being so sick that I was missing months of the year. I would have at least 1 week off every single month where I was just flatlined. And I started to apply this work and this technique to my health. And now I have a little bit of soreness, a little bit of pain, tightness, but my debilitating mold toxicity, autoimmune, Crohn's and colitis. It would alternate between the two, gut dysbiosis, mast cell activation syndrome, SIRS, um, chronic fatigue, all these various things. Oh, even asbestosis. I had salmonella. I had all these various things that were going on. And I would say I maybe have 10, 15% of any of those symptoms that are left. Pretty much and that had been going on since I was a kid. Some of that had been since I was 5 years old, and some of it since I was 15. It was stuff that I had been living with, and it was just getting increasingly worse year after year. And now it's getting significantly better, where pretty much I just have the occasional stomach thing, which I think most people do, and I have a little bit of neck pain, right? Otherwise, it's by and large resolved. And I have a little bit of stuff in my ear, but it's not the chronic infections that I used to get on a very regular basis, right? And so this video is not about that. I'll go into that another time. But my point is you don't have a mindset problem or an external problem. You need to stop focusing on just how to get better opportunities, work harder, motivate yourself. No, a lot of that is what's actually holding you back because there's a limit to how much you can just use your willpower and use your motivation, use that sense of chasing, use that rush of, I got to get it all done, you know, that only can take you so far. It has a limit. You run into a capacity problem. And that's the thing that I'm trying to get into in this video, right? Your nervous system, it can only create and sustain realities that it perceives as safe. And I know you guys aren't going around consciously thinking, I'm not safe here. When I say safe, I'm speaking to the autonomic nervous system, to the unconscious responses, to the subconscious programming, all of that stuff that's set in there by old wiring in your brain, right? Your biological system in your brain, it's very old and outdated, at least in comparison to the rapid increase of evolution of technology and the environment around you and the chemicals in it and all these different things, right? So what you're consciously thinking about and consciously believing, it virtually doesn't matter at all. It's all deeper than that. That's creating this glass ceiling for you, this barrier to success, right? For example, some people they subconsciously fear embarrassment or they have a fear of failure. Deep down inside them, they believe they're not actually enough, right? And so when they're in situations where they feel a lot of pressure, and again, not consciously, but subconsciously, there's a part of them that believes that they could get embarrassed, they could fail, they could find out that they're actually not good enough. And that would feel really devastating to them. And so they might get sick, they might uh, not prepare. I see that procrastination or putting off preparation. And then when they fail, they can say, oh, well, it's because I didn't really try. It's because I didn't prepare. It's because I was sick, right? It gives them an out to some extent. Or in my case, I would literally get so sick I couldn't even leave bed and I would have to call into work. And as soon as I called into work and was done for the day, I would start to restore back to health. I was like, okay, there's something going on here because it felt very, very real to me, but it was symptoms that were based on this survival response that was based on the past that isn't real. It's not the right information for me to be operating off of, right? I used to have pretty intense bipolar 2 and ADHD to where it was so bad I couldn't even read instructions for something because I was living in a past where I might not get it and then I might get yelled at, right? It came back to a memory of doing math homework and my dad yelling at me for not being able to get it or understand it, right? Him putting that pressure on me. And so my brain would literally go, nope, I can't even read these instructions. I can't even sit with this and focus on this because there's this perceived threat that could come in. I could find out that I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, whatever, right? And when I cleared that, I have not had bipolar 2, which would put me severely manic and then severely depressed, or ADHD since. I got into the subconscious programming and what we call a conflict shock, a moment where my hardwiring glitched out, you could say. It created the self, the version of me that didn't believe it was capable or enough. And so when it felt too much pressure, too much responsibility, uh, too much of a buildup, it would sabotage. So it was always on the weeks when I would sell a bunch of jobs. Selling it is one thing, but then I had to go and manage them and make sure they were completed to get paid. And it would always be right after I hit that next level of bam, I just sold enough to make, 10, 15 grand this week. And then no, I'm sick. My system's shutting down. It doesn't believe that I'm actually capable of holding the capacity for that next level of success. So then the next week, all my sales would have to drop off. I wouldn't be able to hold the responsibility. And I would keep sort of sabotaging myself in that way, right? Same thing even when I broke into my own personal business at first. Every week that I would sell out my schedule, I'd be booked full with clients, my courses would be full. Boom, that sickness would come on and I'd have to reschedule them, which meant I would have to postpone selling out the next week and anything like that, right? So it kept me capped at what I could do, how many people I could serve, of how much benefit I could actually be in the world. And I'm focusing on success, getting your dreams, getting your goals, all of that. But really, there's a deeper thing that you're getting towards. If you want more money and more success, really there's something else that you want that's underneath that. For me, it was a sense of freedom to do whatever I want, right? Which isn't totally, some of that's in fantasy, but it was this sense of not being controlled. And then as I healed that, it evolved into no, I want to be able to impact and serve and help as many people as possible. That's what it became about more so for me. It wasn't this thing that I had to achieve to prove that I got to decide what I do with my time and energy, that I couldn't be controlled by mom or dad anymore, right? Living in the past. It evolved from that into no, it's of how much service I can actually be, how many people I can actually reach. So part of being able to get there is understanding the secondary benefit that you think you seek to gain. For a lot of you, it's going to be a sense of self-worth, a sense of security, a sense of power. And on the more healthy side of that spectrum, it may be this desire to be useful, to be able to take care of all the people in your life, to be able to provide, to be able to be that person that others can turn to when things are wrong, right? There's so many variations, but getting clear on what that is for you makes it easier to achieve because now we know what's the barrier, what's the false belief that's keeping you from it, and what's really motivating you, right? You can become that sense of safety. You can become that source of power. You can become that source of freedom within you. And now your nervous system and your wiring, it gets to adjust. You get to practice having that and being that. And then it primes you to be ready to create the equivalent of that, the representation of that out in your external world, right? Now your internal system is actually prepared for your next level of success instead of that being something that's dangerous or too big for you. Okay. So, kind of like for me with the sales thing, as soon as I was able to see that I am capable of the responsibility, I am enough, I can hold it. And I don't have to in order to prove that I'm smart and capable, which was a big thing for me, right? I didn't go to a normal college. My dad was an engineer. It was all based on intellect and never making mistakes, being able to get everything right. And so a big part of me in that career wanted to prove that I could succeed as much as he did, that I was enough, right? To kind of earn his respect. It was really buried in there. I would have never thought of it as that, right? But it was interesting because the year when I finally made as much as him, I was like, oh, mission accomplished. I don't have to prove that anymore. So now I can go and do what I really want to do. And if I had done that from the beginning, I would be 5 years further ahead, right? My mission would be in a much different place. And so there's all sorts of these internal barriers that keep you from being able to move forward into your next level of success. And it's fairly simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. There's a system where you can find them, dissolve them, and set yourself up to be able to hold all that you wish to see in your life. All right. I hope this is making sense. Another example is like I had a client who was really struggling to make content for his business. He had a belief that, people weren't going to see him, they weren't going to hear him, they weren't going to appreciate what he had to offer. And that even deeper, that if he succeeded, that somebody would want to knock him down, that would be him breaking his loyalty to his family line, uh, going outside of what they deemed as the path to success, and that he might be abandoned, ridiculed, or even attacked for creating wealth in his own way, walking his own path. So every time that he went to make content, his internal system would go haywire and he'd suddenly be distracted. He'd have other things he had to do. He would get into a total panic spiral where it just felt like this overwhelming anxiety. So he couldn't do it, even though consciously he wasn't afraid of filming content or thinking about it in that way. But that internal operating system was still glitching out based on the deeper buried beliefs that were in there, right? And it's not just beliefs, it's actually a core identity distortion. It's the who you became, the who you had to be to endure a situation that created this sense of doubt, fear, deprecation. The false belief is built into it, but it's really an identity distortion at its core. And when you shift identity, the beliefs, the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts, and the behaviors, and your external world, that's all downhill of that. It all gets to shift and change into alignment with who you not just perceive yourself to be, but actually feel and identify as you, right? You can't just be this fake identity that you're trying to rehearse or play. You have to dissolve whatever's holding the false identity in place so you can truly be that which you really are, which is able to hold, fulfill, see through whatever vision you have for your life. Your ambition, your goals, your dreams, that's all informed through the spirit self, right? If you can imagine it and think of it, it's something you can actually create and have here in this world. We just have to work on this internal operating system so that you can actually hold it, embody it, and have it in the world, right? Simple, it isn't easy. Yeah. And so in case I missed it, here's the part that most people miss. Your nervous system, it doesn't care about your goals. It only cares about survival, right? That's what the individual self, the ego, your biological parts are meant to do. They're there for survival. And unfortunately, familiarity is oftentimes misinterpreted as survival within the nervous system. That's why people who are in abusive relationships will continue to be in them. It seems like it would be an obvious thing, an obvious danger to them, but they're like, boom, I got abused, I got beat, whatever, and I lived. That's familiar to me now. I stayed in that for a long time instead of leaving immediately. So now they associate that as safety, not in their conscious mind. They know better, but deep down, that's how it registers. And so they keep creating those same relationships, right? And everyone in their family's like, what's wrong with you? Well, that's what's wrong with them. Nothing at the conscious level. It's deeper than that. It's just primal. It orients to yourself, your subconscious self-image, not the self-image you're saying in the mirror, but your subconscious self-image, right? That identity that you're living in, even if you're trying to play a different role. And at some point in your life, you got familiar or comfortable with where you are, how you operate, who you are. But your soul, your spirit, it's giving you this information, this vision. You want to dream bigger. You want to step into something else. You want to heal. You want to succeed. You want to live your purpose. You want to see your dreams fulfilled, right? But then there's this part of you that's been fighting back, a part of you that doesn't see it as safe to do so. Maybe responsibility led to overwhelm. You didn't believe you could live up to more responsibility. Maybe success led to some sort of conflict. You associated further success with betrayal or loneliness. Maybe visibility led to attack, betrayal, or collapse. Maybe pushing yourself led to burnout and illness. Your system simply is like, no, I'm already stressed with what we have. I can't create more stress in the system. That'd be too much. And so it's holding you back, right? Your system, it learned something simple. This level is safe. The next level isn't, right? In that learning, it's not in your thoughts, it's not in your conscious mind, it's embedded in your body and psyche. It's the unconscious part of you that's holding you there. And that's why you can see this beautiful future for yourself, but you just can't quite stabilize it into reality. or at least you're having some resistance in doing that, right? So, anxiety and stress, it's not the problem. I'm not here to just teach you how to be calm or regulate yourself. No, that just requires more and more regulation all the time. We're going deeper than that. Anxiety and stress, it's what happens when your nervous system is being asked to operate beyond its learned threshold. It's the dashboard light, not the engine failure. You don't calm your way into a bigger life. You don't positive think yourself into more capacity. You either expand the system or you keep hitting the same invisible and inevitable glass ceiling, right? So, what we're doing here, if you want to work together one on one or in my group, it's not general somatic work, it's not mindset work, it's not nervous system regulation work, although what it does do ends up regulating the nervous system or creating a nervous system that doesn't need regulation. What we're doing if we work together is addressing the root cause. That way, you don't have to spend hours of day regulating, saying affirmations, visualizing, or just chaotically hard working your way, hoping to get it into the next version of yourself and the next level of your life that you want to be in. You don't have to put yourself into sympathetic overdrive to get all the chemicals that motivate you to keep moving forward, right? The ones that boost all that adrenal production, but then eventually have you crashing out at least 1 or 2 days a week, leaving you in collapse outside of that sympathetic overdrive that you're in, right? And to go a little deeper into that, that's where most high performers live. They had a conflict in their early life that says, I'm not enough, I'm not lovable unless I achieve, there's scarcity, whatever it is, right? You sometimes see a lot of refugees, people whose families migrated from one country to another. They have this generational wound that's motivating them. And it works to a certain degree, right? They get in this sense of sprint, adrenaline, pressure, achievement is their way to succeed. But it's all based on a fallacy. It's all based on a belief that who they are is not enough, deserving, lovable, whatever the case may be. There's plenty of options. And so it can never actually be fully fulfilling or sustainable. Eventually, it's going to come at a cost and it's going to hit a limit. Only when you create something that's in alignment with who you really are is it enjoyable, sustainable, and true, right? And so those people that are in that boat, they're seeing themselves as being on the path towards success. It's giving them the hormones, the energy they need to go after it. It's the chase. You get this physiological boost, but like hunters in nature, eventually they're supposed to catch the prey, right? If you're always in the chase, never in the having arrived, having got the prey, which is where a lot of people are, they just rely on that adrenaline, the rush, the chase, the caffeine, the the Adderall, the fear, the tension, the pressure. It's this forward-facing obsession with being in the hunt that might even feel good for a lot of these people, but it'll generally impact their health or their relationships pretty intensely, right? You might have a certain level of success, but it's hurting other areas of your life, right? It's not sustainable. So what has to happen is we want to be able to turn that on when it's needed, but for most of your day in life, you want to be in that place that's grounded post chase, that state of receiving, relaxing, the one who's already caught the prey and knows that there will always be more, right? Sometimes we unconsciously believe that if we are satisfied, grateful, and accept that which we've already created and have, or we see that which we seek to gain from this achievement is being within us, there's a part of us that believes we will lack the motivation to go after it, that will just be this monk or this fat king that just sits there and doesn't give anything back to the world, that doesn't have any motivation. No, that's not true. That's a fundamental belief that has to be changed. When you realize that what you're seeking to gain from whatever it is that you're trying to achieve is already within you, you switch out of this biological imperative of chase, collapse, and you move into actual expression, actual creation. Instead of being the human animal that you are, you become more of the human spirit that you are. You still create, give, achieve, whatever in the world, but it's from a place of wholeness. It's from a place of not needing it in order to affirm who you are or to compensate for what you deep down believe that you're not. You're not trying to buy, achieve success your way out of a false identity. You're whole as you are, and now you get to express powerly from that place. That's a state of great coherence. That's an energy where the world realigns to bring you everything that resembles you. You know, it's a much more powerful, easy, graceful way to move through life, and you still get to have it all. There's still motivation, there's still power in that. It's just coming from a different place. It's coming from you as a soul instead of you as a body. It's actually enjoyable. It's way more profound, right? The artist who's trying to create a painting in order to survive versus the artist who's creating a great work that speaks to all that's in their mind, right? They're not worried about the payoff. It's about the process and the art as an expression of them. Those are the artists that end up selling their art for millions and millions of dollars. Those are the ones that actually blow up the most, not the one who just said, let me be in the chase and effort my way through all of these paintings, right? Yeah, it's a very different space. You can sustain this, you can grow from this, you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, but your internal operating system, it also goes, this is okay. I can continue to create more of this. It's expanding territory because you can easily maintain that which you already have instead of it being equated with more stress, more pressure, uh, all of those things that could potentially be setting you back. More opportunity for loss, that's a big one. If you don't need it, you already are that which you seek to gain, you can have it all. There's no fear of loss. And so any of your previous losses that maybe you associated with you not being good enough, things being able to be taken away, all of that, it's irrelevant. It's not going to get lit up and then cause you to not succeed or have as much in fear of loss, of being taken away, whatever, right? You can have it all when you realize you already do have it all. And I don't want to get too metaphysical or too far out with this, right? I want us to hone into the real cost of staying the same, staying stuck. It doesn't just cost you productivity, it costs you quality of life. When you keep stalling, you slowly lose trust in yourself, not just consciously, but structurally. Your body learns I can't hold what I want, right? It's kind of like if you have a panic attack, you start to have more anxiety because now you're living in fear of having panic attacks, right? Same thing with this. If you don't succeed, you stay the same, you stall, you lose trust in yourself, and you expect to get more of that. It starts to become more chronic. You might start to develop chronic stress, hormonal issues, low testosterone, digestive issues are a common one, sleep disruption is a common one, sporadic motivation, inflammation, emotional flatness, or emotional reactivity is a big symptom that can come here. The body, it's always going to collect the bill of living a lie, living not to your fullest potential, right? But the biggest cost, it isn't just health or money. Those can expand so far when you make these internal 5% adjustments, right? It's the version of you that never gets to stabilize into existence. It's this opportunity of a lifetime to become true you who you are lost, missed out on, right? It's you living from survival or fear instead to get to live from love. And that can be a life wasted if you don't nip that in the butt and shift that pretty quickly. You know, I myself lost a lot of years to that I wish I could get back, right? And so I owe it to myself and to you to show you a way out of that. Real change, it doesn't come from forcing a new identity. It comes from removing the internal conditions that keep pulling you back into the old one. And this process that I work with, I call it conscious somatic restructuring. It has phases to it. Phase one is the identity threshold. We locate the exact point where expansion became unsafe. I help you to find your subconscious programs and what is the barrier to stepping into the version of yourself that can hold the capacity needed for your next level of growth, for all that you want to accomplish. This isn't an intellectual battle. It's something that has to happen somatically because when you go in somatically, it touches into the core resonance of the subconscious program. It lives in the body, the brain, and the psyche. And just tapping into it in the mind, me just trying to negotiate this with you, isn't going to work. We have to enter in somatically. And that can be the hardest part for a lot of you. It can be really hard to go beyond mentally thinking about things. That's how we're trained and conditioned our whole life. But I'll show you how to go in somatically. And this isn't super ooey gooey woo woo, right? Somatic just means the physicality of a sensation, thought, belief, self. It's just the physicality of how it shows up, right? That's what we're going into. That'll show us the internal prison you're living in, as will your language and your overall energy, right? So I'll help to read and identify that for you to get us to the root of it. So we're not just messing around and coping, strategizing, processing, none of that nonsense. I only care about going to the root and resolving that so you don't need to work with me anymore after this, right? My goal is to only have new clients, not reoccurring clients, right? Although I do get reoccurring clients that just want to work on other things. That's fine. Phase two, we resolve the stored conflict, right? It's sort of a level of deprogramming, getting rid of the program that lives within you. It's resolution. It's what allows the nervous system to no longer perceive threats or these stop signals. It allows your system to regulate, to hold capacity. It becomes a new baseline for what's normal, and that allows you to upgrade your whole life, right? You can't jump steps. You have to upgrade that internal operating system, and then your entire life increases. Boom. Then you upgrade it again and again, right? It can be pretty cathartic, it can be pretty fast, but it does have to be gradual enough that you can reorient to the new reality. It can feel like a little bit of a void, a little bit of like this ego death is you move from who you've been being into who you really are, right? So, to the degree that you can withstand that dying to yourself, that void, is the degree of speed in which we can bring you into a totally new reality where you have everything you've ever dreamed of, right? Phase three is more on that, right? It's stabilizing this new operating level. It's the integration, it's the application, it's the brain retraining, it's actually creating a new neural network. And that doesn't mean it's 800 complicated protocols or techniques that you have to do. I make it really simple, right? But once you're in that new identity, we have to get your whole system to organize to that, allow you to become somebody new, to stop reverting to who you had been and to live the truth that you are, right? It's applied integration, it's aligned action. It really helps to solidify a permanent state shift. So it's not just a feel good boost that happens right after a session, but something you live for the rest of your life and expand upon, even after our time working together, right? This work that I'm doing, it's for leaders, founders, high performers that are done pushing, done fighting, done doing it from this survival place. This isn't for people who are just trying to buy a solution without any participation on their part, right? This isn't some get rich, cheesy manifestation work that I'm doing here, right? It's not a magic pill, it's not a silver bullet. Anyone who tries to sell you one is lying, and it's probably not going to work. If it does, it'll be very temporary. This work, it requires a commitment to truth, an openness for change, a willingness to be seen in your pains and fears. And for people who know the cost of staying the same, they know the cost of staying stuck, and they're ready for change at all costs. I want to have super powerful testimonials like the ones I already have. And so I want to work with somebody where the pain is great enough that you're ready to be done with it for good, or the inspiration that you have is enough that you're ready to be done with it for good. I don't care which end of the spectrum you come in at, but this is for people that want to seek the truth above all else, and they're ready to let go of everything that's false in order to get there. Yeah. Not somebody who just wants an upgraded ego or me to do all the work for you, right? I'll guide you every step of the way, but it does require conscious participation on your part to get the amazing results that I like to be able to share with people, right? So if you're ready to address things at the root, no more coping, no more bypassing, no more of that nonsense. You're ready to increase your capacity, not your effort. Let me know. I'd love to work with you. You know the cost of staying stuck. You know there's no shortcut, hopefully. You know you have to face yourself head on. So if you're ready to remove the internal ceiling instead of just fighting against it, you know where to find me. I'm here. I'm all in on revealing the true you and helping you to live the life that you're truly meant for. If you're all in on you, message me. Let's do this.